Welcome to Shannons Club TV, the show for all Shannons Club members and anyone passionate about their cars and motorcycles.
Here on the Shannons Club website you can find stories by motor racing historian Mark Oastler and myself. These stories have been such a hit with our members, we're now bringing you visual histories here on Shannons Club TV.
Here at the club room we'll take a close look at what made these vehicles stand out on the road and in competition. And we get the latest news from the Shannons auction team. Now it's time to take a look at the car that gave Chrysler a fresh start for the 1960s, the Dodge Phoenix.
No matter what Chrysler Australia did in the 1950s, it just couldn't revive the success it enjoyed before World War II. The new Dodge Phoenix and a new local Valiant changed that overnight. As Chrysler hobbled into 1960 with an obsolete side valve six-cylinder model as its core vehicle, the first step was to add the new US Dodge Phoenix. It was joined by the Valiant in 1962. Suddenly, a visit to local Chrysler showrooms carried some real anticipation and excitement for the first time in years. The Phoenix's unibody construction, push-button automatic transmission and torsion bar front suspension were all of interest to loyal Australian buyers who'd waited patiently for Chrysler to make a triumphant return. The local Phoenix, with its big 318 5.2 litre V8 and lower centre of gravity, was embraced as a tighter, more responsive long-distance cruiser without the yank tank float. Mark, the 1963 Dodge Phoenix was the only full-sized American car that ever made an impression at Bathurst. Why do you think the Phoenix was the only car of its type to fly the stars and stripes?
Well, the fact that that Phoenix even ended up on Mount Panorama was just a matter of convenience. The guy who entered it was looking for a car to race. That car became available at the right time at the right price. But I must say, if you were going to run a yank tank, as they used to call it at Bathurst, that would have been the car to run. Full unitary body construction, the torsion bar suspension could be adjusted so the car could be lowered. It had a fantastic automatic transmission. And that 318 V8, that had more power than the XR GT Falcon that actually won the race. So put together, it was a pretty good package.
Not only would the 1963 Dodge Phoenix prove to be an unlikely Bathurst contender in later years, its closer styling and mechanical links with the unique Australian Valiant struck a chord with Australians. Both models sent the local Chrysler turnaround into overdrive, prompting a new factory and a rush of new models. After Chrysler appointed ex-Ford designer Elwood Engel to replace Virgil Exner's wild earlier designs, the crisp new Dodge Phoenix and Valiant ranges that resulted immediately looked at home on Australian roads. By 1965, the Dodge Phoenix had created such a local following that Chrysler had to create a unique Australian model based on the US Plymouth Fury range. A succession of desirable Australian Dodge Phoenix models followed, and by 1971, the Plymouth Fury had become just another yank tank, and there was little that Chrysler Australia could do to change that. The timing for an all-new local Chrysler Prestige model to take over was perfect. So Mark, a large American family car like the Dodge Phoenix holding its own at Bathurst was quite a bizarre and one-off occurrence.
Yeah, it really is an amazing story.
If you'd like to read the full road and race history of the Dodge Phoenix or other classic models sold in Australia, you'll find them all here on the Shannons Club website, where you can also join the conversation with other members. Coming up, we'll meet a proud Phoenix enthusiast and get the latest from Shannons' auction team in Hammer Time.
A 1960s yank tank with push-button automatic, drum brakes and bench seats would have to rank as one of the most unlikely cars you could ever race at Bathurst, which made the one-off appearance of a Dodge Phoenix in the 1967 Bathurst 500 such an intriguing story. It was the only time a Dodge of any kind competed in the annual 500-mile race for standard production cars, which is a record in itself. Driven by Barry Sharp and Lindsay Derryman, pre-race preparations of the well-used 1963 model Phoenix were minimal. Apart from some minor changes to the 3-speed automatic shift patterns, the 1.6-tonne V8 American cruiser was stock standard, right down to its skinny wheels and radial tyres. Joe, back in those days, the Bathurst 500 was really a demonstration of a road car's durability and its engineering quality. And I guess you'd expect that a model like that had quite a big following from buyers in Australia, particularly rural buyers.
Yeah, the Dodge Phoenix was a bit unusual. It had its own very passionate following, and it was very disciplined. It wasn't as flamboyant or as flashy as other American cars. And I guess there was a bit of a focus about it that rural farmers sort of enjoyed and liked.
Still look pretty funny on Mount Panorama though.
That's true.
The lone Phoenix was entered in Class E for cars with a retail price above $4,500, meaning its only competition came from 4 1.6 litre Alfa Romeo GTVs, which not surprisingly dominated the class. Not that it worried the Dodge boys though. The primary goal was to drive to a plan, stay out of trouble and finish the race, and that's exactly what Sharp and Derryman achieved by wallowing around Mount Panorama for 118 laps to finish 19th outright. The car's owner, John Barno, was thrilled after not only finishing his first Bathurst 500 as an entrant, but also scoring a place in the top 20 with a remarkably trouble-free run. And perhaps of most relevance was that they managed to outrun the only other V8 automatic in the race, a new XR Falcon V8 police pursuit prototype driven by a pair of serving police constables.
Gee, you couldn't imagine Ford boss Bill Burke being too happy about that.
Fortunately for the Dodge boys, on that day, they got away without a speeding fine. Hope you're enjoying Shannons Club TV. Why not join the Shannons Club and share your passion for unique, rare and classic cars and motorbikes with other enthusiasts across the country. Keep up to date with the latest news, events and exclusive offers from Shannons.
G'day, my name's Steve. It's a 1965 Dodge Phoenix. It's a 318 V8, Australian made. Most people think they're an American yank tank, but it's actually made in Australia, so that's sort of why I like them. And I grew up near the Chrysler factory in South Australia, so it's been in my blood for a little while. Previous to this model, I had a 68 Phoenix for about 8 years, and the main thing about these cars, I think, is that they're pretty much bulletproof. Nothing ever went wrong with it. I think what I like most about it is that they're a little understated vehicle. It's not a flashy kind of looking car. It's got a bit of prestige about it, but it's nothing, nothing too crazy. Originally, I found out that it had a siren on it, so I thought it must have been a police car, but after digging into a bit of research on it, turned out that it's actually from the Secret Service that used to be in Albert Park. And they actually went on to say that because it's a 65 model, when LBJ came to Australia, the US president, it may have been part of that, security division. Yeah, so back in the 60s, first sign of trouble, the Secret Service would, you'd hit the siren, plant the foot and get the baddies.
Well, Shannon's National Auctions Manager, Chris Borabon, joins us. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Hi guys.
Hi Chris. So Chris, how does the Dodge Phoenix rate against comparable locally built US cars like the Chevy Bel Air or the Ford Galaxy? Where do they sit in the hierarchy?
Yeah, look, I think the Phoenix has had a fairly loyal following over the years. It's got its own market there, similar to the Chev and the Galaxy. Again, if you're into the Mopar cars, you've got the tendency to go towards more of the Phoenix rather than the Chev or the Ford. So it does have its own market. It's proved quite popular, a really great entry point car into that market, and quite practical as a family car as well.
So Chris, pretty good buy then?
Yeah, definitely a lot of metal for the money, look, a great entry point to the classic car market.
Chris, where do you find the most demand is, in the earlier sort of wild designs or the more clean lines of the later 60s cars?
I think the styling of the 63 to the 66 have proved really popular with collectors over the years.
They look great, don't they?
They do, yeah. We've seen them, either on the private market or through the auction house. They've done very well, performed pretty well. And again, as I mentioned before, great entry point for a lot of collectors.
Well, that was the point where the Engel styling came in, and when Chrysler started putting the Regal trim, the same as the Valiant Regal trim, into the Phoenix, changed the whole approach of the car.
Chris, we did see in the later models there was variance between sedans and hardtops. What's the situation there in terms of demand or desirability?
Well, it wasn't just the body style, Mark. It was that new 383 big block engine, and that was quite a powerful engine for its time.
Yeah, it was pretty good, and yeah, look, I think we've always had a love affair also with pillarless cars. You know, when you wind both those windows down, it's a fantastic.
They're always more desirable.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They, you know, they've always proved popular over the years, and again, with that combination of a 383, what a great combination. So those late 60s, early 70s Phoenixes were great.
Do you see many of those come up?
I think we find most of them change hands amongst a club
Yeah.
or in that circle. So very rarely we see them come up. But it'll be good to see some more come through the auction house, actually.
Well, thanks for joining us, Chris, for Hammer Time. Keep in mind you can keep up to date with all the latest auction news on the Shannons Club website. If you'd like a unique photographic record of the Dodge Phoenix in competition or a huge variety of other cars in Australian races, check out autopics.com.au, Australia's most comprehensive motorsport photo archive. Well, Joe, what's the historical message we can take from this Dodge Phoenix era in the 60s?
Well, in 1967, Chrysler was under serious pressure. Ford was getting its act together. Holden was bringing out a V8 very shortly. It was a perfect timing for Chrysler. We make reliable, long-life cars.
Well, that was the message that came through, all right. Well, thanks for joining us for another episode of Shannons Club TV. We look forward to your company next time.